Hello and welcome back to the Pop Culture Powerhouses. This week we have got two icons, two rogues, two bad boys who don't play by the rules. We have got the galactic smuggler Han Solo versus the bad boy Professor Indiana Jones. Ho ho ho.
Two sides of the same person.
Quite literally. Harrison Ford's two most iconic characters for sure.
Yeah.
And his two big franchises that he's already made appearances in. And of course, he'll be adding to his collection of big franchises in less than a year when he makes his appearance as Thunderbolt Ross in
Yes.
Captain America New World Order. Or, sorry, Brave New World.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into it. As always, there are 6 categories:
There is.
iconicness, individuality, quality of adaptations, legacy, relatability, and personal preference.
Yes.
So let's get right into it. Iconicness.
It's tough. They're both very iconic characters in pop culture.
They are both two pillars of pop culture, in my opinion.
It's so hard to decide which would be more. Because Han Solo, such a huge pillar of Star Wars. The whole who shot first is an iconic thing in pop culture.
I feel like Han might be just ahead because he's a big part of a bigger franchise.
Possibly, yeah.
Whereas Indiana Jones is the whole franchise, but it's a smaller franchise.
Yeah. Like Han Solo is a character that is more than just Han Solo.
Yeah.
More than just Harrison Ford, I mean. Whereas, like, I feel like Indiana Jones is only...
Indiana Jones is one of very few characters that I genuinely believe is only allowed to be played by one actor.
Yeah. I do think Star Wars just edges it just because it's Harrison Ford's in more stories around more. The franchise of Star Wars is so huge.
Yeah. I think that's fair, though.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana Jones has his iconic moments, though. Like, one, his look is iconic, and then the whole running. Anytime there's a runaway from a boulder in any game, any other film, it's like, oh, doing an Indy.
Individuality. This, I think, goes more towards Indiana Jones. Like, such a unique character. The professor of archaeology who wears...
Fights Nazis.
Yeah, fights Nazis with a bullwhip and wears a fucking cowboy hat and just ends up dealing with the most random mystical shit you've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Versus
the space smuggler.
Smuggling anti-hero, kind of reluctant hero vibe.
Yeah, Han Solo is iconic in Star Wars, but he isn't really any more than just a space smuggler.
Yeah, I don't think he's particularly unique in that sense. Of like
but
the character style.
And don't get us wrong, that's his point in Star Wars. He is meant to be the
everyman.
Yeah, because you're dealing with Jedis and Sith and stuff, and it's like, well, then there's just this guy with a gun, and he's just your standard space smuggler.
Yeah, exactly. Quality of adaptations. The Solo film was not good.
No. And obviously, the sequels have mixed opinions.
Although I'd say all of Harrison Ford's versions of Han Solo is one adaptation.
True. Okay, yeah.
Indiana Jones only has one adaptation.
Yeah.
Because the game isn't out yet.
The films are mixed, though.
Yeah, I'd say Harrison Ford isn't the problem in the bad ones, though.
True. Yeah, the character himself. Yeah, I think, unfortunately, in Star Wars' case, he'll be good in the comics.
But he's also not like the I forget the actor's name, who played Han Solo in Solo: A Star Wars Story, wasn't bad. The film was bad, but he wasn't bad.
True. And there's the Star Wars comics where Han Solo's, I'm sure, solid in those.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'd be more inclined to call this a draw, I think, than anything else. I
Yeah,
don't think either of them are
like Star Wars has
obviously one better than the other.
Yeah, usually we go more adaptations is better, but I think in Star Wars' case, where some of them have been very mixed quality, yes, there is more variety, but I think I would agree. I'm happy with it being a draw just because of that.
Legacy.
Ooh.
Now, this is where it gets really techie.
Mm.
I think Indiana Jones has an incredible legacy. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Anytime you see someone rolling away from a boulder,
yeah, and
you're
I mean,
like,
let's be honest. If you say archaeologist, you picture Indiana Jones.
yeah.
The
I think
tans, the cowboy hat, a whip.
Do you know what it is? I think Indiana Jones, when it came out, like them first three films were so phenomenally well made.
Mm.
The pop culture impact them films had, they have one of the biggest legacies on cinema, like obvious legacies.
Yeah.
And Indiana Jones being the title character means he's directly responsible for a lot of that.
Mm. Yeah, no, like those first few films made such a strong impact on pop culture
Like
and left
how
a
many
mark.
takes on like the joke about snakes? Why did it have to be snakes? Have you seen? And
Yeah.
and like the quick swap and the boulder and how many times have you seen like references to the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah.
Do you know
I mean,
like?
that, mentioning the quick swap, there's so many times where quick swap's been used.
And it is always like a reference to Indiana Jones.
Mm.
And like here's the thing, yeah, it's more the Indiana Jones films are pop culture references, but being the title character, he's intrinsically linked to a lot of them. Whereas Star Wars has a lot of obviously legacy, but not as much of that is tied directly to Han.
Han's legacy, I would say, from Star Wars is who shot first.
I love you. I know.
He flies the Millennium Falcon, and his best mate's a Wookiee. And it's like, don't get me wrong, like, and he's the like cocky space smuggler guy. But like, other than that, he's not left an impact onto other things. He's just got a legacy of stuff that he's remembered for from those films.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think legacy-wise, Indiana probably pips it.
Yeah.
Relatability. I'm gonna say something that sounds fucking crazy here.
Okay.
I think Han's life is more realistic to what I could possibly live than Indiana's.
And you're already friends with a Wookiee.
Like, Han is just this dude cutting about doing his own thing that kind of gets roped into a rebellion.
Yeah.
I could see myself ending up in that situation more than I could see myself using a bullwhip to fight Nazis. Although both lives are incredibly appealing and becoming more realistic by the day.
I love Star Wars, so I feel like I automatically lean that way. But it's funny, it's like Indy's sort of it's the same thing happens though as he got into the later films where he was older. It's like he kept getting dragged into stuff that he didn't necessarily mean to be.
Yeah, that is actually quite relatable. Just like this accidentally being involved in.
Oh,
shit
you're the guy that's known for
of.
this, so you got to come help. And it's like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. The fourth and the fifth film is very much. Oh, when you were young, you did crazy things, and he's like, yes, but I'm old now. Leave me alone, please.
I think that's just Harrison Ford we're related to here, not necessarily the characters.
Harrison Ford is relatable as fuck.
Yeah.
Relatability, I'd probably go more towards a draw. But if you really tried, you could swing me either way.
I think I'd lean Han just because, like you said, it's more realistic that you just get mixed up in with the weird Jedi people for just being a normal guy.
You agree to give someone a lift one time, and then before you know it, you're in the rebellion blowing up. Yeah,
I'm too much of a people pleaser, so I could definitely end up in that situation.
For sure, yeah. Personal preference, Indiana Jones. I adore Indy. I adore Indy so much. Some of my favourite memories when I'm young on me and my dad watching Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time. That film was one of the coolest films I'd ever seen the first time I saw it. There was something about it. It felt so different. I don't think there's any other film like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Not that I can think of.
Like it feels like such despite being like relatively generic action film, at the same time it feels so inherently unique.
I feel like that's because people daren't try to do something similar because they know that you're just Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you're not going to do as good a job as ILM did back in the day.
People aren't willing to take the risk.
Yeah,
I mean, for me,
they will do like the parody of it and like all the sides and like the face melting and like the references to it. But that again just shows you how big a pop culture icon Indiana Jones is. Like, and Star Wars has a lot of their moments, but again, Han just isn't as tied to as many of them.
No, I mean, for me,
let's tot it up.
Yeah, it's easy.
Iconicness. I think Han does win iconicness.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he's a very large part of a much bigger franchise.
Yeah.
He's kind of like medium fish in the Atlantic Ocean versus massive fish in the British Ocean. What's it called? What's the bit between... the Channel. The English Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's kind of like the difference.
I know where you go.
Individuality is Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I would agree on that.
Such unique character.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't think should work, but does.
Grumpy old archaeologist who fights Nazis is a weird combination.
And hates a lot of things. It's great.
Yeah.
Quality of adaptations. Probably a draw.
Yeah, I would say draw.
Because while there is only one adaptation of Indiana Jones, I do think the poorer later films kind of counterbalance the variance in Star Wars Han representation.
Yeah, and also Star Wars having a bit of a mixed bag of opinions on some of those.
Legacy.
I think has to go to Indy.
I agree. The impact
that
he's had in so many ways. I feel like if you were to really, I feel like, and these are just ones that, like, we're so keenly aware of. I feel like if you were to sit down and look through a lot of like action films and action comedy shows since then, with the sole focus of looking for Indiana Jones references, you'd probably find even more subtle ones.
Probably.
Relatability. Do we call this a draw because we're both just related to Harrison Ford more than the characters?
I think so.
I feel like that's fair.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we relate to about these characters is a little bit of Harrison Ford seeping through. Yeah. What I will say is Harrison Ford loves Indiana Jones a lot more than he loves Han Solo. And I think that's because the brand isn't as big. So he's kind of like, I can just enjoy this character a lot more.
Also, I feel like it's more just him in Indy.
Yeah.
He's not having to be part of this big thing.
And I believe personal preference is going to be a draw because I go Indy, you go Han. Both phenomenal characters who I adore with my entire heart. Like, they are so important to how I view media. Like, even in Starfield, my character is called Juan Duo because it's a joke on Han Solo.
Oh dear.
Like, let's not get it straight. I love Indiana Jones, but I've got a lot of love for my boy Han. But that score is 2-1 Indiana Jones. So a very low scoring podcast house with a lot of draws in there. But Indiana does just squeak through.
I mean, we did pick Harrison Ford's two most major roles.
Yeah. And I think in terms of a pop culture icon, I think Indiana Jones is a larger pop culture icon than Han Solo is solely.
Yes.
Obviously Star Wars is larger though. But that is it from us this week. Let us know down below who you think is the bigger pop culture icon. And we'll catch you next time.
See you next time.